and welcome along to another episode of Telecast PH, the Telework PH Business Process Outsourcing Podcast, a podcast dedicated to breaking through the cultural barriers and changing the way we look at outsourcing to the Philippines. Here you'll find stories, experiences, and advice from business leaders in different industries, motivational and mindset content, and many other topics that are sure to bring value to your operations. I'm BizDev Jeff, your host. I'm the Business Development Manager for Telework PH. Thanks for joining. And as always, a special thank you to all who have been listening and following my content on LinkedIn and Instagram. And if you haven't yet, you want to find me on those platforms, all you got to do is search BizDev Jeff. Connect with me and I'll show you how outsourcing some of the non-core aspects of your business, like customer support or back office operations, can open up a whole new world. And in return, you'll be helping our mission to make an impact on poverty in the Philippines. Right, so on to today's topic, leadership. Specifically, leadership development. I was joined recently by Ben Dueck, who has a master's degree in leadership and is a certified CliftonStrengths executive coach. And he has developed his own signature CliftonStrengths themes, which are strategic, belief, self-assurance, ideation, and futuristic. Now, it was an extremely interesting conversation. And it really opened up my eyes to many of the ways leaders and even teams can strengthen their skills and be more effective. Let's listen in. Hey guys, welcome to Telecast PH. Today I have via Zoom Ben Dueck, who is a certified CliftonStrengths executive coach and the founder and president of Cantera Leadership. And I'm excited to have him here. We're going to talk about leadership and how right now, with what the world is facing, leadership skills are extremely necessary. Ben, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. I'm looking forward to chatting with you and providing some value for your listeners. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I, sir. As am I. Do you want to hop right in and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and what is the Gallup certified CliftonStrengths coach? What is that all about?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So first of all, I'll say I'm from Canada, so right in the center of Canada, almost in the center of the country near Winnipeg. So anyone who follows hockey, of course, I'm not sure if your listeners do, but the Winnipeg Jets will be what might come to mind. And I live here with my wife and 3 kids, and I'm a leadership development guy. So I work with leaders and teams and organizations, and I help them to become better at what they do, basically. I started doing this based out of a long-time passion I've had for leadership development. I've basically been doing leadership development for over 20 years in a lot of different contexts. I've had a lot of different types of roles. I've ran my own business a couple times. I've worked in a church as a youth pastor where I was working with young leaders, young teens, helping them understand kind of what it meant to grow up a little bit and be a leader and be an influencer in the world around them. I've been a summer camp director. I've ran a painting company. I've ran a home construction company. I've worked in the Chamber of Commerce network. And so all these different opportunities I had, I was building into businesses and leaders and people around me. And so about 10 years ago, I went and got my master's degree in leadership because I wanted to, for myself, learn what leadership meant, how I could be a better leader, how I could help others be better at understanding who they were and how to lead those around them in a more effective way. And then just this last year, I put it all together and I launched Cantera Leadership, a leadership development company where I became a Gallup certified CliftonStrengths executive coach. The executive is kind of something I've added in there, but CliftonStrengths coach is what Gallup calls it. And basically what that is, it's using this assessment tool called the CliftonStrengths assessment. Many of your listeners may have heard about it. Over 23 million people have taken it around the world. Mm-hmm. And it's this assessment tool that helps individuals understand their natural innate talents and then how to use those talents to produce consistent strengths, which is basically consistent outcomes in their roles, whatever that might be. And so that's for leaders, but that's also for teams. It's also for companies. How do you be better at who you are and make that more effective? And I think that ties in actually with what a lot of your listeners are working through, because when you're looking at getting someone to help you out with something, like a virtual assistant, for example, you might be looking at where do I have my strengths that I can use most effectively so that I can have the greatest impact that I can have. And then where do I need someone to come alongside me, kind of fill some gaps. And I'm sure that lots of people that are listening to this have asked those exact questions. And I just love tapping into that leadership side of things and help people understand what they're good at and how to make it better.
And this is not industry specific. So, I mean, any industry, anyone who's in any kind of leadership role or who wants to expand into a leadership role can contact you and begin that conversation.
Yeah. And I mean, it's we all have these gaps, right? I like to talk with that with a lot of the people that I work with, whether you call it a leadership gap or a personal development gap, whether that's as an individual or as a team or as an organization. There's this gap between where we're at and where we could be. And how do you bridge that gap? And as you bridge that gap, you actually realize that the gap never gets completely closed because there's always more room to grow. But right here, right now, the gap I have, I need to figure out how I'm going to grow and become more effective at what I'm doing. And that's kind of what I help leaders do. And the approach, the CliftonStrengths approach, I mean, it's used in 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, but the idea behind it, it's actually been researched and proven to bring about change and improvement and results in individuals, teams, and organizations. If they focus on starting with what your strengths are, implementing those as much as possible, you're going to be better at bringing about the results you want. And I think that's what we're all trying to strive for, being better at what we do. I'm trying that every day myself. I don't have it all together. I'm still figuring it out too.
Right. Everybody has flaws. And the fact that you even, bring that up, even about yourself, and knowing that it is an ongoing process, that there's always room for improvement and you just never stop. It's an everyday thing, an everyday conscious choice to make and to be aware of your actions and your thoughts and feelings and how you're approaching different situations as a leader.
Yeah, I like to joke around sometimes that I only do work with imperfect leaders. So if you're perfect, I'm not your man. I only work with imperfect organizations. So hey, if you've got a perfect organization, don't come to me. Only, won't come to me if you're imperfect. If you're perfect, don't come to me. Yeah.
There you go. So now in your LinkedIn profile, you have, and this is interesting. It says you have my own signature CliftonStrengths themes are strategic, belief, self-assurance, idealization, and futuristic. I really like the futuristic part. Because I'm always one that's thinking ahead, thinking towards the future. But so you've taken this CliftonStrengths course and even molded it even further and put your own spin on it and put your own personality and experiences into it. Is this correct?
Yeah. So the assessment, the training I've received as a certified coach, helps me use this tool, which gives those themes. So everyone gets their themes based on taking the assessment. And there's actually 34 possible themes that you can get. And so futuristic is the number 5 on mine there. So that is based on the assessment itself. And then when I work with individuals, whether it's coaching or whether it's team workshops or whether it's organizational kind of culture consultation, then I bring in my own experience to that as well. But the top 5 themes that I have, which are called the signature themes, the ones that you just listed there, futuristic, for example, is one of them. Then I look at, and I do this with clients too, whichever results they get, they're still personalized and customized to how you live that out. So if you and I both had the same result, Jeff, like futuristic, let's say we both had that in our top 5, that doesn't mean that we live that out in the same way. And the report that we actually get if we take the assessment is customized to each of us as to how we answered the question. So some things would be similar in regards to futuristic being very much like a visionary type of a person. I can help energize others because of how I can not predict. That's not quite what I'm, I can't, predict the future, but I can see what the future might be. And I can get others energized and excited about that and help them drive towards that possibility. So some of that would be the same between me and you, but how we live that out in our specific contexts might be different.
You provide like possible outcomes. Like if you do this could happen,
being able to anticipate and imagine what the future can be like and do that for myself, but also for others. And so it can be something, even as a leader, if I'm leading a team of people, especially we got this COVID virus going on, helping people to see what the future could be like in a positive, hopeful way is a very powerful way that I can tap into futuristic. or any of my top 5 themes. There's different ways to tap into them to provide great leadership, and whatever someone's top 5 themes are, that's what I love doing. I like helping them find out how they can tap into them to be better and be better at leading.
And see, that makes perfect sense. And especially now with what the world is facing, there's going to be a lot of changes, to leadership and the approach to leadership. Leadership is changing. They may not, some leaders who are used to having an in-house staff may have to switch to now, managing or leading a remote team, which is a completely different, animal, I guess you would say. There's a different approach to it. I mean, I know that, being in the BPO industry, we do have a lot of work from home, remote agents. I myself work remote, and I've worked as a team leader, and it is different. And and one of the ways is how you simply word a message, through like Slack or something like that. You have to be careful because you have to stop and think, is this going to be taken sarcastic? Is it going to be taken as too harsh? You really do. Mm-hmm. You have to think about certain approaches.
As leaders, we always have these curveballs being thrown at us, right? Right now, we got this big curveball. I mean, it's gigantic how it's affecting everything, right? Virtual teams, people are shutting their businesses down, some of them, right? And some people are maybe going to shut them down permanently, and they're going to be looking for other opportunities. And so we've got these curveballs being thrown at us. It's tough being a leader sometimes, because how do you figure it out? How do you adapt? And when you're trying to figure out how do I craft a message, sometimes you're not even feeling like you're equipped properly for it, because you've been put into the situation that no one prepared you for. You can't really go through training on how to deal with a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
there's no school you can go to, right? So you got to figure it out, and it's not always easy. It's a big challenge for most people. Everyone, it's a big challenge for everyone.
Oh yeah, across the board. I mean, so many business. I think, pretty much everything from the biggest corporation to the smallest bootstrap startup has felt something, even in a minor way. When somebody contacts you, let's just say, somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to give this guy Ben a call." How do you get started? What's the first steps, just to take a lot of the mystery out of what they would expect?
Right. I mean, it's a pretty painless experience overall. I like to think that it can be actually really enjoyable. And one of the reasons why it's so enjoyable is because it's a method and a tool and a process that we go through that's focused around starting with what someone is already good at. It doesn't need to be something where, Ben is just going to be like beating me up over all my weaknesses and over all the things I struggle with. No, we're going to start with talking about what your strengths are. So anyway, backing up a little bit, if someone is interested, they can easily get in touch with me. I mean, we'll talk about some of the ways that they can find me online at the end of the talk here. But if they get in touch with me, I always do a free exploratory call, usually via Zoom, because to me, a big part of doing any kind of coaching, whether it's one-on-one or with a team of individuals, maybe someone out there is like, "Hey, Ben, can you come work with my team?" Absolutely. But I think a big part of it is first figuring out, is there a chemistry here? Is there actually a way that we can connect and get along even between me and one other person or multiple people? So having a short call saying, "Hey, this is what I do. This is what it's all about. And this is the process." Normally a coaching package, a one-on-one coaching package starts with a minimum of 3 sessions, but it can be extended or it can be as long as possible. I've done anywhere between 3 and indefinite. I have a client who I meet with once a week, and it's an indefinite contract until we feel it's ready to wrap up. But then also from a team perspective, usually there's team workshops that I do. I'm starting to do virtual workshops because of, again, the virus. And that's really a great opportunity, I think now, especially during some of these times of challenge, to build into your team so that when times start to become more stable and more normal, your team is firing on all cylinders. And that's where you can have a conversation with me and figure out how we go about getting the assessment done, and then lining up a time to do either the coaching or the workshop, or combination if it's a combination with an organization.
Right. Now's the time to start exploring those kind of options.
Well, I think so. And it reminds me of something that I just did a webinar on this actually recently. So Gallup, the company that I'm certified through as a coach, they've also done a lot of research and a lot of studies. Most people know Gallup because they do a lot of research. They actually don't know the leadership development component side of it as much, but it's actually, I think they do as much leadership development as they do polling and research. they did a bunch of research about 10, 12 years ago around what followers want from their leaders. So they didn't go to, famous CEOs or celebrity, speakers or anything like that. They went to the followers in organizations and they said, what do you need from your leaders? And they had, I think it was like 500,000 people or something. Don't quote me on that number for sure. I forget exactly how many that answered. And so they came up with these big buckets of kind of what the themes of the answers were for us as leaders to kind of grab hold of. And the reason why I did a webinar on it, and the reason why I want to share this with you and your listeners, is because it is so important all the time, but it's so much more important even now when we're dealing with this uncertainty that the coronavirus is bringing. And so if you're okay with it, I'll share you those 4 things for you and your listeners.
Absolutely.
So first one that they came up with was trust. So followers need trust. Now, there's lots of different ways of kind of viewing what that means exactly, but I think the simplest way of summing it up is that you need to be predictable in an unpredictable time. So your followers, if you're a leader, your followers, the people around you, and even if you're not a leader with followers, it could be your family that needs this, that they want to know what you bring to the table. They want to know how you will react. They want to trust. They want to trust that you're going to be able to be who you say you are, and that they're not going to be uncertain if they show up to work in the morning or if they show up on their virtual call that they've never had before. They don't want to be able to be worried, oh, who's showing up as my leader today? What am I going to get from him? They want to know what you're going to bring to the table. So they want to trust that. Be predictable in an unpredictable time, especially. The second thing is compassion. So I think compassion, we always want that from people around us, whether it's friends or whether it's family. But even as followers, your followers want you to show compassion. So say that you care for them, but back it up with policy as well too. Like, don't just say, oh yeah, I care for you. I'm glad you're on my team. I love having you as a part of my team. How are your policies backing that up? And especially with fear, the uncertainty that's happening now, and it might mean you need to build some relationships with those around you more than you might think so. Most of the time we feel like we don't have time for that, but you may need to, especially during these uncertain times, spend a little bit of extra time building that relationship, building that friendship. If you're having your virtual conference calls because you can't meet in person, don't be scared of having some time at the beginning of your call, like more time than you might even feel is normal, just talking about what's going on personally. Because people are all figuring it out, even in their own homes. I'm figuring it out here at home too.
You want to know what they're experiencing on their end. And so that you can approach that with compassion. You want to hear, what are you feeling? What are your fears? Yeah,
exactly. And your followers, if they have that, I keep using the word followers, but it doesn't just apply to followers, but the people around you, they want that opportunity to share it, because when they share it, if they feel comfortable sharing with it, that builds that feeling of, yeah, people care for me. And then they want to be involved more with you as a leader, with your organization. And you're going to start seeing some transformation within your team because they know that they are in a safe place. It doesn't need to be that they're, that's their only circle of friends. Obviously, you hope the people in your team have friends outside of your team as well. But if they don't feel like you got a safe place, that they're not going to be as engaged with their work either. The third thing Gallup found was stability. I mean, that's a huge one. Providing this psychological safety for your team. And so it's kind of the practical stability. I mean, people want to know, if they can, that they have the things that they need to do their job, right? They want the tech that they need. They want the paycheck. They want the support around them. That helps them feel safe, right? And in some situations that might be bringing in other people to help out, or, having someone come and fill this gap so that I can feel like I am able to do my job properly. That provides stability. Then there's the psychological side of things as well. And especially in times of uncertainty, do your team around you, do they know that this workplace is a stable workplace, that they're going to be able to come to work and not have this sense of drama and people freaking out? Not that they can't be real, but freaking out over other things, because lots of people have been a part of workplaces where this workplace drama that I had to deal with today, or whatever the case was, so-and-so was flipping out at so-and-so and whatnot. As a leader, can you provide some of that normal place to be at work? And then the last one is hope. Hope is so powerful. If you don't have hope as a part of how you lead, as a part of your team dynamic, you're missing out, because hope is what gives people the ability to look beyond the now So the stability is a part of the now. Hope is what a part of the future is. It's this aspirational goal, this aspirational direction that we're going. And so you as a leader can help provide that, especially during turmoil, being able to say things like, you will be okay. We will be okay. And if workers around you, if your team around you has hope, they're going to be more resilient. They're going to be more innovative. They're going to want to work harder. And then they're going to help get over the obstacles that we're all dealing with, these new barriers. They're going to help get over those a lot more if they have hope for what could be. So those 4 things: trust, compassion, stability, hope. That's what we got to do as leaders.
And as I listen to you talk about that, it seems to me that they all intertwine.
Absolutely. Yeah, they build off each other. They come back. It's almost like a cycle in some ways. And if you're missing one of them, I mean, it's going to be a struggle. It'll be hard to miss them. If you're hitting 3 of them, you're probably providing the 4th one anyway. But you got to still be intentional about it to a certain extent, because your leadership needs to show those qualities to your team.
All of this is essential for a healthy company culture.
Yeah, whenever, right? It doesn't need to be only now during this COVID-19. It's essential for company culture regardless. So the study was done 13 years ago, before the COVID virus was anywhere on the radar, right? It just becomes that much more important when these kind of pressures come. But your company culture needs those 4 things. Absolutely.
And right. And at this point now, even more so, like you said, people are, looking to their leaders to lead them through this uncertain times. You keep saying, we keep talking about these uncertain times, and they really are. Everybody's worried about their job. Everybody's worried about their security. And not only that, they're worried about their health. They're worried about their safety. So it's pretty much their entire life is affected, not just their job. So if, they're already concerned about their kids, their parents, their families, whoever contracting this virus and becoming ill and becoming sick, they're also worried about lockdown, getting supplies in, paying bills. They don't need that extra added insecurity of, is my job on the line? Am I going to lose my job tomorrow? Are they not telling me something? What's going on in the company? I can't get a hold of my leaders, this kind of thing. They're looking at their leaders to blaze a trail, to be dependable, and to trust them, to trust that, hey, this guy, he's going to do everything he can for me, for us.
Yeah. And absolutely. And I think that a big thing that you referred to there is the communication side of things, right? Because communication is a major part of all 4 of those things that I talked about. How you communicate, how often you communicate. And most of the time, as leaders, we don't communicate as often as we actually need to. We think we've communicated enough, but when it comes down to it, when we actually talk to the people around you, most of the time it comes back that the communication level wasn't where the people around you wanted it to be. And so communication is a big side of things. And I think a second thing to keep in mind as we're trying to figure this all out is, maybe there's going to be uncertainty around what is happening with the business, right? And there might be a time and a place for a conversation around, hey, we're not sure where our business is going. But again, communicating when it's important and what is important to communicate. You may not be able to communicate everything, but there is uncertainty. So I don't think you can get away completely from saying, we're not sure, what's going to be happening.
Right.
We have to own that. But how are we communicating about it? And how are we doing the things that we can do in spite of that uncertainty? So maybe it's, we're all working from home and maybe we're all working virtually, but maybe as a leader, if it works out because you live in a close proximity, I know some virtual teams don't, maybe what you got to do is you got to go drop off something special on their front step. Maybe they need some extra groceries, or maybe they didn't even say they needed extra groceries, but hey, that's a great way to show compassion and to show that you actually care, because there's some things that you can't control. You can't control. Maybe your business isn't taking in enough business to actually make it through the next 4 months. But what can you do so that the people around you are still feeling like you are doing what you can in the moment you have? Do something different than just nothing.
That is a great point. Great point. So backing up now, when we're on, let's just say we're in regular times, we don't have a pandemic.
Right.
And just to simplify and taking it to the basics. So, that when we're in an office setting and, the leader walks in, say, who we call the boss or whomever, they set the tone pretty much for the day.
Yeah.
You know, when your leader comes in and they're irritated, they're in a bad mood, they snap at somebody, it's like, whoa, you can cut the tension with a knife, as they say, you know, throughout the office. Is this also something that you touch on? Is that even, you know, basically how leaders can internalize things without having it affect them personally, but without showing things to the staff and to those around them?
Yeah, it's something I do talk about this with a lot of leaders, and it's a fine balance to try to figure out, because I do talk a lot about an importance of being authentic and real with your team. So you don't want to hide everything, but you also don't want to be that jerk who comes in and takes it all out on the team either, because that's not fair to the team either. And one of the things I talk about a lot with leaders is, how do you move away from being a boss to being a coach? And that's really a trend. It's not really a trend even. I think that's where everything is moving. It's not going to just be a trend that disappears, where the workforce is moving towards that direction of, how does my leadership be more like a coach to the team I'm with? Because that changes your perspective. If you walk into your doors of your organization and your team is there, maybe some of them are, maybe all of them are, whatever the case is, and you have that mindset, I'm here to help be a coach with my team, where I want to help bring the best out of them and bring them up, rather than try to be the one who brings them down. That's where you're going to start seeing some transformation in your team. Because currently, I think the statistics are something like only 21% of the workforce around the world considers themselves engaged in their job. And I think the other end of that spectrum is disengaged. It's something around 20% as well, or 20-something%. I don't have that number here in front of me. It's disengaged, actively disengaged. So those are the people that are almost going to work basically to try to not intentionally screw you over, but they're doing their best to make things hard. They're not going to be the ones that are getting the work done. And that, according to studies, is costing organizations worldwide in the trillions, with a T, of dollars. And
Wow.
so if you aren't looking at how you can increase engagement as a leader in your organization, you are costing your organization, even if you're a small organization, you're costing your organization thousands of dollars of lost revenue. But more importantly, it's not only about the revenue. You're causing this hardship and pain in these people's lives, because I would never want to show up to work and be someone who is just grumpy about being at work. The only reason I'm there is because, hey, I got to have a job, and I'm going to just sit here and I'm going to, be on my phone doing nothing as long as possible, as long as no one's watching over my shoulder. Imagine the pain, internal pain that person is going through. So you're also causing these hardships these people are going through. Yeah, some of it's their problem. They got to figure it out. I agree, right? Sometimes it's just, we need people with solid character that work for us. But your leadership also plays a huge role in how you can draw those people up. And so if you're able to be a coach, if you're able to draw the best out of your team, you're going to see their engagement increase. You're going to see their satisfaction with their life, not just with their work, increase. Studies show that people who are engaged at work, who have a boss that is helping them become the best that they're able to be, focusing on their strengths, are 3 times more likely to say they have a good quality of life. That's not changing anything in their quality of life in regards to they have more toys or more cars or whatever. It's just the fact that they have a place at work that they feel that they can be the best at who they are. That's powerful. And so as leaders, we need to be able to do that more effectively.
Right. And you made a great point there, because that people, staff members, employees, they take that home with them.
Yeah.
If the boss is a jerk and they've had a bad day and they're thinking about it as they leave the office, they're thinking about it on the way home, they're thinking about it at the dinner table with the family, and they're not able to be present with the family if they're dreading tomorrow. Is tomorrow going to be a bad day? They're going to lose sleep. And it really does affect every aspect of their lives. And I was just thinking, even more so now with work from home teams, virtual teams, the leaders are actually coming into their homes.
Yeah.
So they're right there in their face, in their homes. So, that's an even, I don't want to say more drastic approach, but more powerful approach, I suppose, when, if you're face to face with your leader there and, on the screen in the Zoom, and he's giving you an earful and your kid is like, 2 feet away, or your significant other can hear it in the other room. That's, that's something to really watch out for. One thing that you keep saying that sparks my interest is focusing on strengths. Now, I saw a post some time ago, and I believe it was put out by Gary Vee, where he said, and I just want to see if you agree with this or your approach to this. He said, forget about your weaknesses, get somebody else to handle your weaknesses, triple down on your strengths. Is this part of your approach? Is this something you agree with, that kind of statement?
Yeah, I think that it aligns very much with what I would talk about with teams and with leaders, in the sense that if the more you can tap into your strengths, what you're good at, the better you're going to be. And the metaphor I like to use, and it's one that's been used in a lot of different situations, is let's say, Jeff, that you're a fish, right? And as a fish, you're really good at swimming, right? Because that is your strength. And if I ask you to go climb a tree, you will not get up that tree very quickly. You might never get up that tree. You might spend a lot of your energy, a lot of your time, a lot of your effort trying to climb that stupid tree. And you're going to get frustrated. The people around you are going to get frustrated because you're not getting that tree climbed. That's not your strength. You are a fish. So go and swim. And if that tree needs to be climbed, find someone who can climb a tree. So that might be someone else on your team. That might be someone that you have to bring in from outside. But that tree, if it needs to be climbed, shouldn't be for you. Now, if you're a solopreneur, you might need to be someone who is able to climb some trees a little bit, but in the ideal situation, you got to try staying in your wheelhouse, your strength wheelhouse, as much as possible, and look for ways that as soon as possible, you can find someone else to climb that tree. So yeah, I would agree with that to a certain extent as well. Yeah.
And that's where bringing in some outsourced individuals like virtual assistants or an outsourced customer support team can really help out a leader, because they have that experience. They're experts in different fields of, say customer support, or, whatever it is, like answering emails. We actually have clients that are horrible at answering emails. Even my emails, I'll email them and they'll get back to me sometime next week. They're great at running their businesses, but answering emails or answering phone calls or returning messages, they're not so great at. So they actually have virtual assistants with us to handle, their emails and their calendars and other parts like that, parts of their business.
Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense, because then it allows you as a leader to excel where you want to excel and to do the things that only you can do. There's certain things that you can't outsource as a leader that need to be in your wheelhouse. But so often we're focused on trying to put out fires or trying to solve some of these things, like how am I going to email, as an example? You brought that one up, that you can't even focus on the things that only you can do. So what are the things that only you can do because of your role, but also because of what your talents and your strengths that you bring to the table? And how can I do that more often? That's a good question that we all need to ask ourselves in whatever role we're in, whether that's, you're the key leader in the organization or you're a member of the team, whatever the case is. What do I bring to the table so I can be more effective and I can help my team be more effective? And let's find others to fill that gap behind me.
So by that rationale, you say that it's perfectly okay to show your weaknesses in front of your staff.
I think it's good to be aware of them for sure and to talk about them. I think always start with talking about what you bring to the table in a good way. And I think that's a great kind of culture and philosophy to bring in your organization, even in how you do, employee reviews and performance reviews and things like that. We need to be talking a lot more about what are the good things that you do and what are the good things you bring to the table. And there might be things that I'm not good at, and I want to be aware of that, and I want to make sure my team is aware of that. But I want to start with saying this is how you can get the most out of who I am as a leader or as a team member, whatever the case is. I want to be so comfortable with who I am that I can say those kind of things and recognize that what I'm good at is like having a superpower for my organization. And it's okay to be okay with that, right? I mean, maybe we want to be humble, and sharing what you're good at isn't about being cocky or overconfident. It's about being real and then saying, these are also some things I'm not good at. And there might be times where you still need to do the things you're not good at, because we don't live in a perfect world. love if it was a perfect world, but we don't. So there might be times where I got to pull up my socks and I got to do that thing that I'm not good at. But again, I'm climbing a tree when hopefully I can be swimming more often.
So I'm wondering, okay, throughout this conversation, if you ever run into guys like I was a few years ago, and that is, and I'll admit it, Superman mentality. And when I say that, I mean that nobody can do it as well as me. I have to do everything, even the things that I'm not good at. And you know what I mean? Just basically, it's just never going to be good enough.
Right.
That is something that even, for me, I've had to work on for myself and relax a little bit and allow other people to handle certain things. I'll give for instance, just today, we were reviewing some numbers, and I am horrible at math. I'm slow. I can do it. It just takes me a little bit longer than other people. So I actually had to go to our, director of operations and say, hey, listen, can you simplify this? And, it hurt me inside in a little way to admit that weakness that I have. So do you run into people like that are running themselves, into the ground, but just having such a hard time letting go?
Yeah. And I think most of the time I've seen those people being solopreneurs who are doing it on their own, and they're unwilling to even consider having someone else come and do something with them because they feel like they've had to be the person all along. I've had to own this. I've had to be the one who does this best, as good as I can. And it's hard to trust others because it's your livelihood on the line when it's a solopreneur. It happens in other contexts too, but I think that's the ones that I've seen most often. And my encouragement for them is to always, ask them to, again, let's focus on what your natural innate talents actually are. And the Strengths Finder assessment helps do that. So that's what I help them, point them toward that. Here's what you actually are good at. How do we use the things that you're good at, the talents that you're good at, to get the things done the best way that you can, that you need to get done? And then let's start having the conversation as to which of the things that you need to get done do your talents make it harder for you to do than other things, and how do we fill those gaps? Sometimes it might be outsourcing. Sometimes it might be starting to look at how do I bring someone else onto the team. Sometimes it is just the awareness of those weaknesses or those challenges, helping them to kind of identify them means that they approach them differently in the future. So they have a lot more confidence in the things that they are able to do well. And then they're very much more cognizant and aware of the things that they don't do well. They still might do them themselves, at least in the short term, but at least they're aware of those differences between the good and the challenge.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Ben. I've got a lot of takeaways that will personally help me with my leadership skills. So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and if we've piqued their interest and they want to have open up a conversation with you, what's the best way to get a hold of you or to get more information about your services?
Yeah. So the best way, if people are on LinkedIn, that's usually the best channel to get in touch with me. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look for Ben Dueck. That's Dueck last name. It'll probably be in the show notes of the podcast here. Mm-hmm. And they can find me on there. Just send me a connection request and just let me know that you heard this podcast so I can know kind of how you got connected. I also have a website that people can check out. It's CanteraLeadership.com. So Cantera is Cantera, leadership.com, and my contact information will be on there as well. And then I also have an Instagram. I don't do as much on Instagram, but if you want to see some stuff on there too, you can find me on Instagram. But those are the best ways to get in touch with me. If you do want to send me an email, ben@CanteraLeadership.com, send me an email. Gladly interact with you on there as well.
And I'll put all of those links in the description for the podcast.
That'd be great. Thanks for having me on, Jeff, by the way.
Hey, Ben, it's been amazing. Thank you for being on, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds good, Jeff.
So that will wrap it up for this installment of Telecast PH. I've been BizDev Jeff, your host. Thanks for listening, and a special thank you to Ben Dueck for taking the time to talk with us today. Now, if you like this podcast, please subscribe, and if you're on the YouTube channel, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload new content. And of course, if you want to find out more about Telework PH and what we do and how we can help your business scale up quicker, all you got to do is hop on over to www.teleworkph.com or go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search BizDev Jeff Thompson or the hashtag BizDevJeff. And as the late great Dr. Wayne Dyer said, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Take care, everyone. Be safe. This is BizDev Jeff, signing off.